Well, this only took 5 years. Better late than never. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Like many of you, assuming my audience analytics are to be believed, this was my very first Superman action figure. The 1984 Kenner Superpowers collection. Just not this one in particular. I loved that original figure to pieces. Literally. As a kid, I went through a couple of these. The point is that this was the gold standard. No matter how many Superman figures I've had over the years, and believe me, there have been a lot, I've been searching for the one that makes me feel as an adult how this made me feel as a kid. Today, I'm taking my first look at the McFarlane Toys Digital Silver Age Superman, which might just be the definitive DC Multiverse Man of Steel. I say first look because a special figure like this deserves special treatment, so I'm splitting this review into multiple parts. First things first though, and we've got to start with the packaging. This Superman comes in a McFarlane Toys digital window box, digital logo in one corner, and down here along with Superman's name is the classic S-Shield. For those holding out for this hero in store, here's the UPC on the bottom, and then on the back we have some beautiful Superman key art by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I'm not saying I love this artwork, but I literally have this poster hanging in my living room, and you'll notice that exact same picture of Superman standing right there. We'll be referring back to this in the next category, but for now, and for packaging, I'm giving Silver Age Superman 5 points. Moving on to presentation, and it's time for the moment of truth and justice and the American way. This Superman stands for that at 7 3/8 inches, or about 18 3/4 centimeters, and is built off the Crisis on Infinite Earth's body, which we then saw used for Justice League Task Force, but then most recently for the Max Fleischer version and Kingdom Come. Suffice it to say, this is the DC Multiverse Superman body, and we've come a long way since Series 1. Not to say there isn't still a lot to love here, but between the single jointed elbows, stretched out logo, extra lines and piping, the lack of a yellow S on the back of the cape, the more pronounced ankle balls, and let's just say the less pronounced legs, there's nothing wrong with stepping back to admire just how much McFarlane has improved. The articulation's better, the ankles are seamless, their wrist joints are better and flesh toned, the proportions are great. Not only is the cape now cloth and wired, but we've also got the S. No fancy embellishments on the costume either. Just a big dude in simple tights, flying right off of the comic book page. And speaking of being straight out of the comics, we've got to talk about this head. It is literally this artwork come to life. The shape of the face and the bone structure is perfect. The waxier plastic provides a much more natural, lifelike skin tone. The lips aren't too dark. And just look at that hair. Not only do you have that signature S-curl, but there's even a bit of comic style blue in there to act as the highlights. If they hadn't done that, I'd have never even noticed, but it definitely adds a little something. With all this gushing, you might be wondering if I have any criticisms of this figure, and not only do I, it's kind of a big one. The logo. Specifically, the black outline around it. On the rare occasion an action figure does that, it really takes me out of it. It feels less like Superman, and more like a Superman t-shirt. That said, I did order a second one, along with some water slide decals, so when that extra arrives, I'm going to take a shot at swapping that out. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. In its defense though, I will say the paint is nice and thick and the colors are rich and vibrant, which unfortunately has not always been the case. For presentation, a near perfect Superman like this deserves a near perfect 4 points. Moving on to poseability, and while we did just look at this body with Kingdom Come Superman, not everybody saw that, so it's worth checking out again. From the top, and Superman's head is on a dumbbell joint. He can look up this high, and I'll be curious to see what that looks like with a flying pose. For context, here's Superman looking straight, and then down this far. That dumbbell joint means a super amount of tilt, and all the way around. Moving on down, Cal can raise his arms this high, complete rotation at the shoulder, and an awesome amount of range in the rotator cuff. Moving down the arm though, and Superman has bicep swivel, double jointed elbows with a perfect bend despite those pythons, and wrist balls that can swivel and hinge either up and down or side to side. Moving to the middle, and Superman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far, which is what I want to see. In combination with his neck articulation, here's a flying pose. Zooming into the camera, I'm pretty happy. Alas though, and as usual, Clark can't hunch forward. very impressive amount of side-to-side tilt though, and of course a very lifelike twist. Under the outside underwear in Superman has the standard McFarlane hip joints, by which I mean whatever you call this number, just push it to the side, Lois. He can kick this high, which seems pretty super to me. He can also bend back this far, and of course gets a perfect split. Supes has an alright amount of twist, but could be better. Moving down though, and no complaints on the bend of the double jointed knee, and then all the way down we have toe articulation, and ankles that can swivel, hinge, and like Clark Kent changing the subject every time someone accuses him of being Superman, pivot. For Poseability, I'm giving Silver Age Superman 4 points. Moving on to Playability, and of course Superman has a trading card and a figure stand. That stand has been stamped with the McFarlane digital logo, and if you want to read what the trading card says, pause here. Otherwise, the only character-specific accessories Superman comes with are these open hands. They're exactly the same as the ones that came with Kingdom Come and the Max Fleischer Superman, and are good for flying, gesturing, and pushing against other characters and objects. He does have the wired cloth goods cape, which adds to the playability. Beyond that, all he comes with is this card, which has a redemption code for a digital version of the figure. The preamble to this video is pretty much a solid minute that could be summarized as, I'm old, so the digital stuff doesn't really do it for me, but I'm not going to pretend it doesn't have value. And if you're into it, more power to you. Personally, I was kinda hoping he was going to come with Beppo, similar to how Digital Aquaman came with Quisp, but this is Silver Age Superman, so I would have also accepted rainbow blasts or mini Superman clones shooting out of his hands. Of course, playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. That said, with this possibly being the definitive Man of Tomorrow, there are a lot of comparisons to consider. Things like his villains, or the Superman family, or the Justice League. There are so many comparisons I want to make that part 2 of this series is going to be just that. For the purposes of this video, however, I'm mainly going to be focusing on the progression of classic trunks-wearing comic-style Superman throughout the years. While superpowers might have been my action figure introduction to the Big Blue Boy Scout, the true all-plastic action figure of Superman was Pocket Superheroes by Mego. In some ways, I would say that line paved the way for superpowers. Toy Biz then took over the license with a line of figures so badly made that they might as well have been bootlegs. Supes wouldn't soar into toy stores again until the 1995 Man of Steel series by Kenner, but at the time Superman was still all business up front and party in the back, so that's what we got. That carried over to the hyper-stylized, over-exaggerated Total Justice series. It's perfect for anyone who ever wondered what it would be like if Superman was played by Benicio del Toro. But then in 1999, Hasbro gave us our very first 6-inch scale Superman, which was also the first all-plastic Superman to have elbow joints and ankle hinges. DC Direct started making their own Superman figures in 2003, starting with this Silver Age version. This came in a 2-pack with Lois Lane and not only has ankle hinge, but it also has bicep swivel and ball-jointed shoulders. He also had alternate hands practically 10 years before it became an industry standard. It's actually a pretty remarkable figure for the time, and if you're interested, I did a whole video on it. Around the same time, Mattel took over the license and released this Superman in a 2-pack with Batman. Despite the gritted teeth, I liked this one a lot. That evolved into Mattel's DC Superhero series, and this Superman with his muted color scheme and wide stance. But then came DC Universe Classics featuring all of DC's characters, plus this classic style Superman. Running parallel to Mattel was DC Direct, which was still churning out lots of great cows. This one's based on the artwork of John Byrne and is one of my favorites, though for the longest time this History of the DC Universe one was my display figure. Regrettably, mine has suffered some paint chipping over the years, but between the proportions, color, and smiling head, for a while this was the one that came closest to hitting me in those superpowers feels. They shifted gears with the hyper-articulated 6-inch scale DC Icons line, but admittedly I had a hard time getting into it until it was too late. That line was replaced by DC Essentials, which for a while was my favorite DC line. It certainly had its issues, chief among them being the long limbs, narrow bodies, and the $28 price tag despite not usually having any accessories, but at the time time I preferred the scale, the simple, more comic accurate designs, and the variety of characters. In 2019, NECA got to take a swing at a classic comic Superman, and for the most part it blew pretty much everybody else out of the water. But then in 2020, McFarlane Toys took over with DC Multiverse and Action Comics 1000. There are so many DC Multiverse Superman figures that they're getting their own video. Part 3 of this series, Superman Head Swaps. Other companies were also making their own premium figures. Take for example this Mezco 112 Collective Man of Steel. McFarlane Toys also revived the Superpowers collection. It was a little rough out of the gate, but has greatly improved since then and brings us full circle. For a relative scale comparison, here's Superman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. You know, between flying and energy blasts and being bulletproof, thanks to my armor, I can do pretty much anything you can. Really? How about jogging? Oh, how quickly we forget. Clearly there have been a lot of Superman figures throughout the years, and this one is definitely up there. Thanks to the flight stand and comic book, I felt that the Kingdom Come Superman had more tangible value, but in terms of playability, this is a good figure and deserves a good 4 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price, and once again I've got to bring up Kingdom Come Superman. Just like Page Punchers, the price of McFarlane Digital went up to $27.99, and as I said in that video, the stated reason for that price hike is tariffs. The tariffs are an ever-evolving situation, so it's hard to say what the lasting impact is going to be, but it doesn't change the fact that this is demonstrably the same figure as Kingdom Come for the same price, but with less in the box. Again, I'm not saying that there isn't any value to the digital aspect, I'm just saying it's harder to perceive that value like with something more tangible like a flight stand or a comic. Otherwise, the only difference is the S on the cape, and obviously that carries a certain dollar value in production costs, but as much as I like this figure, it really feels like it should have just been a basic DC Multiverse for a few dollars less. For price, I'm giving Silver Age Superman an okay 3 points, averaging out to a still good total of 4 out of 5, and given how much I genuinely love this figure, I'm just as surprised about that as you. Fortunately, there is more to the value of this figure than just the basics, so make sure you come back for part 2. Was one of these your first, and if so, which is your favorite? Sound off in the comments below, and while we wait for part 2, check out one of these Superman videos. Until then, play nice and have fun.